That's it. Okay. Yeah, I've been replaced, by the way. We got a new president. All right, nice to be back again. I missed you guys. Just a quick thing, obviously, I had a routine checkup back in February, and I've been slugging around a little bit lately. I was out ice fishing in January, and I was struggling to pull a stud across the pond. I was fine the rest of the week. My snowblower wouldn't start. I did some shoveling. I felt good, but I figured better say something about it, because my father died at 70 of a heart attack, and I just turned 70, so I don't want to take any chances. And he did an EKG, and it was a left bundle branch blockage. I was talking to Mari about it. He said, hey, don't worry about it. Come over on the Boston Marathon next week. You'll be fine. But I'm certainly an example of the good health you get from being ATMoB president. Anyway, we're going to start this afternoon. And our guest Ariana is going to talk about the Citizen Cape project, talk about a little bit about it. And then afterwards, we're going to auction off this telescope here, if you had a chance to see it. Our guest speaker, Kevin Collins, has taken, this is the original Odyssey. I bought this back in 1980. It certainly looks it. But I was thinking of auctioning it off. I've got not just the heart situation, but just the back and everything else. That scope's going to be a little bit heavy to move around. Although Kevin's taken a scope like that, and he put his scope in here just one trip. We took about 3 trips to get my scope in here. So we're going to auction that off in just a little bit. I'll talk more about that. But I'm going to turn things over to Ariana right now, who's going to talk about the Citizen Cape project. Go ahead, Ariana. It's all yours.
Hi, I'm Ariana Roberts. I'm the president of the Acton-Boxborough Astronomy Club. I've been selected as a Phase 2 observer, which for the Citizen Cape project. So basically that means that the Phase 1 observers, they got funds, but the Phase 2 observers, they didn't get any grants, so they have to raise their own private money. So for the Citizen Cape project, the Citizen Cape project is the continental American telescopic eclipse, which is basically, so in August there's going to be an eclipse, a total eclipse that is going to sweep basically across the whole continent in America. So I'll be traveling to South Carolina to view the eclipse. So first I'd like to thank Matt Penn, the National Solar Observatory leader and the Citizen Cape project. I'd like to thank Bruce Berger and Thomas McDonough. And I'd like to thank Bob Baer, professor of the SIU leader, and he'll be doing the April Citizen Cape training. And I'd also like to thank some of my fellow members of the Acton-Boxborough Astronomy Club. I'd like to thank Harini Ganapathy, Nicole Bell, Molly Burke, Olivia Hu, Gabrielle Roberts, Caroline Fox, and Fiona Lesperry. Citizen Cape will be studying the upcoming solar eclipse in August, and the last eclipse was actually from continent to continent, was in 1818, so it's been a very long time, and this is a very special opportunity.
Mari, do you remember that?
Some of us do.
Normally, if there's an eclipse, you'll get a 2-minute video of the sun's corona at most, but Citizen Cape will be positioning astronomers spread across the line of the eclipse geographically, as you can see in my map thing from here to here, and I'll be in South Carolina here. I'll be basically the last observer. I'm where the land meets the ocean, and so they'll be spread along the line of the eclipse geographically, and then they'll combine the data to create a 90-minute long video so they can study the eclipse. So what we can gain from this is the sun's corona hides many mysteries. So the corona can reach several million degrees, which is no small feat because the sun reaches 6,000 degrees Kelvin. Another example is that the solar winds are accelerated from an undetectable outflow at the solar surface to speeds of 500 kilometers per second in the outer atmosphere. So studying the sun's corona during the eclipse could really help solve these mysteries. So a reason why we can't just send really a spacecraft to go, and study the sun's corona is because the sun itself is so bright that it's hard to see because of the contrast of the sun's corona, so it's very hard to study. But during eclipse, it's blocked off, so we can only see the sun's corona, and therefore we can help study it more. So it gives us a unique opportunity to study the solar dynamics. So the timeline, basically, of until the eclipse and after the eclipse is right now we've already ordered the Kate equipment, but on April 28th through May 1st, I'm going to go to Carbondale, Illinois, to the National Solar Observatory Kate training. So it's going to be taught by Bruce Baer. And from May to July at ATMoB Westford, we're going to be having crescent moon observations to practice the data fusion with National Solar Observatory with the Student Astronomy Club. And then, obviously, on August 21st, in South Carolina, on the seashore, there's going to be the eclipse. So, afterwards, at ATMoB, the Kate equipment will be donated to the ATMoB community for other astronomy projects here. So, the Kate equipment includes a telescope, it includes aquatorium mount and tripod, motor drives, solar filters. It includes a really good camera, to name a few. So, thank you.
Now at this point, Bruce and Tom have been working with Ariana to help get this program going. So if you have any questions, you folks going to be around for the whole meeting?
Yep.
All right, so they can ask any questions you had. Yes, Tom, do you want to make
Maybe I just say a quick note. I think it's really awesome. Ariana did a great job describing the project. I remember in 7th grade I did a science project on our friend the beaver. So this is a really fantastic opportunity for us to support Adriana and Project Kate. So we ask that everyone dig deep. You didn't point out where the website that you can go. There's a GoFundMe site for that.
Yeah.
And I will make sure that an announce or a discuss email goes out. It's just a clickable link, and we ask that anyone interested in donating to this really great project. Not only is it a great STEM project, but it's also great to see females in science, and we need to support that, absolutely. So please, when I send that out, go to the link and feel free to donate. And the other aspect of it is that ATMoB is going to benefit with the donated equipment once the project is done, and it will allow us to continue on with a lot of solar observatory work and general use also. So really excited about it. It's a great opportunity for the club to help out this creative organization. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom and Bruce. We couldn't be here tonight. By the way, I remember back over a half century ago when I was in the 7th grade too, and we had an eclipse. It was 1959, and the path actually started right around Massachusetts. My hometown, Littleton, was right on the path, and a lot of astronomers set up on the top of Mount Wachusett. And that was when I first learned about astronomy and Murphy's Law, because it was totally overcast. I remember getting really dark and then it got really light again. That was my first experience with an eclipse. 7th grade, right? I taught 7th grade for 30 years, that's why I have a bad heart now. They look so innocent. Then you get about 25 in a classroom. All right. Oh, before I start, I'm going to auction off this scope. This has been a friend of mine since 1980. This was the first commercially made Dob. And yeah, it's been through the mill. I've used this scope. This scope was used. It wasn't just a centerpiece. I didn't put it in an office to impress people. And it's the wood's peeling. I was going to revamp this scope, in fact. And then the thing, it was very hard to move this thing into my car. It was really wrecking my back. And then, of course, I had this heart situation. So again, maybe I'll be okay after that. But I think it's time to kind of scale down. And it was perfect timing with Kevin talking about taking that and turning a nice, he took this in just by himself one trip. We had to take a couple trips to lug that Odyssey in. But I was going to do an auction, and I'm not an auctioneer, but I got an email from Bruce Berger, who's very interested. I was going to start bidding at $50 because the mirror alone, I was getting 14th magnitude stars with this scope last spring, and yet there's already areas you can see the light through the mirror. I got a price of $125 to have the mirror resurfaced. I wanted to sell the whole scope because, to tell you the truth, I don't have the heart to just throw this thing in a junkyard and have somebody take the mirror. So whoever gets the scope takes the whole thing, and they can do what they want as long as I don't see it. But Bruce offered $450, which is up there, especially if you got to pay $125. I emailed Bruce back and said, hey, that's a bit too much, but we'll see how things go here. I was going to start the bidding at $50 and then go from there, but again, Bruce has already hit $450. I would say if anybody here, let's start around $200, because what I'm going to do with Bruce, I'm going to just contact him back and say, hey, let's give it $200. And by the way, the money's going to the club. And maybe for Project K, we'll have to talk that out. So Eileen, any money that we get for the scope will go right to you, if that's okay. Is anybody here interested in, say, paying $200 for this scope? I really didn't think so. But I want to say something. This scope, again...
And you have to take it home tonight, right?
Well, somebody's going to help me then. No, what I'll do is I'll probably bring it over to Westford. I'll put it in my car and just bring it over to Westford Saturday night. But this scope has seen over 70,000 variable star estimates. I started using this scope in 1980, and right up until last year, you know, in some years, 5,000 or 6,000 variable star estimates with this scope. So it really has seen a lot. We're talking about a supernova in a galaxy 60 million light years away that I saw with this scope. So it really has done the job. Yes?
When did you put a map of Neptune on the scope?
That! You want to see how much use? He's talking about this, I believe. That,
even the cloud fans have it.
no, what it is when I'm looking for the finder scope, I'm breathing here. It's a lot. My breath must be pretty acidic. I don't know. But that probably represents thousands and thousands of breaths over. You're going to put that in the newsletter, aren't you?
Just
Alcohol does the job.
That's why I like double stars.
Is that what a double is?
What I wanted to say is that the scope that I use primarily at the clubhouse is a lightweight dog, which is what the discussion will be about tonight, but it's the same mirror.
Yeah,
It's the 13.1-inch Coulter mirror.
yeah. Again, it's a great scope. It needs some work, obviously. I call it a fixer-upper.
But you can learn how to make a lightweight dog and then put that in the lightweight dog.
Well, again, Kevin's going to talk about that in a little bit here. Anyway, let's get things started. Oh, by the way, I did, one of the sad things about this heart condition, I was supposed to speak at the Southern Star Astronomy Convention in North Carolina at the end of the month, and I called the director soon after I heard about this situation. We both agreed, you know, we better not risk anything. So he did send an email out, I think through Roger Iverson. They were looking for somebody to replace me. And is Al Slisky here? Al? Yeah, he already, what they did, they got Al Nagler, so it's kind of an upgrade from that. But I think your talk would be very interesting, so keep with Roger and so forth, and they might be looking for something for the next year, and I'm planning on coming back next year. Okay, that done. Welcome to the 897th meeting of the Amateur Telescope Makers of Boston. ATMoB is an amateur astronomy club devoted to telescope making, observing, and studying the heavens. We were founded in 1934 with the cooperation of Dr. Harlow Shapley at Harvard College Observatory. In 1973, the Bond Astronomical Society, another long outstanding club, merged with ATMoB, making it one of the oldest and largest general interest astronomy clubs in the country. We meet formally the second Thursday of every month except August to hear a speaker, to discuss club activities, and to socialize. We publish a monthly newsletter, Starfields, thanks to editor Al Takeda, which is available to all members. We hold approximately 30 star parties for schools and other institutions each year. We maintain a clubhouse and observatory with a workshop, library, and observing field in Westford, Massachusetts. The clubhouse is open on most Saturday nights. Now, I'm going to change, it says most Thursday nights, excluding the second Thursday, the clubhouse is open. It's no longer, so the telescope making is now on Saturdays as well. But if you're in our email list, sometimes people would open up the club at any particular time, so always check your email every day. The clubhouse might be open for special occasions. Special interest astronomy-related classes are frequently offered on Friday nights. We still have the introduction to astronomy, right?
It's pretty much every Friday. It's been going on for almost 10 years now. And
So basically, you show up on a Friday and there'll be something going on.
yeah.
Again,
the only
you can't-
time it's not been one is when we had a snowstorm.
Okay, so again, we'll put out any type of announcement there if there's something we need for cancellation, like a snowstorm or something. Okay, so let's get things going here. We have the project case presentation. We'll start the business meeting with the secretary's report and Phil Levine.
I am going to read the minutes of the monthly meeting held March 9, 2017 in the Phillips Auditorium at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Vice President Tom McDonough called the meeting to order at 8 p.m. Phil Levine read the secretary's report. Eileen Myers presented the treasurer's report. Chris Elledge presented the membership report. Tom McDonough acknowledged Maria Batista and Chris Elledge for the hard work on the new club website. Bruce Berger and Steve Clardy presented the observing report. For objects and pics of the month, for information, please see the newsletter. The clubhouse report was given by Steve Clardy. Announcements. Tom McDonough reminded the membership about astronomy videos presented by John Mayer Friday nights at the Westford Clubhouse. Bruce Berger informed the membership the ARIA Observatory is available for special projects. For details, see Bruce. John Sheff gave an informative presentation regarding the Cambridge Science Festival. For details, please see the newsletter. Members interested in volunteering should see John Sheff and Virginia Renahan. Star Party report. Tom McDonough reported on the 14th annual Acton Star Party held March 6. Over 600 people attended. Also on March 6, a Star Party was held at the Healy School in Somerville. John Sheff set up a scope. Virginia Renahan brought a portable indoor planetarium. March 7, the Belmont Star Party at the Cherney Middle School was rained out, but ATMoB members set up scopes indoors for a show and tell demonstration. The club received a certificate of appreciation from the school. Old business, none. New business, none. Tom McDonough introduced the guest speaker for the evening, Dr. Douglas Arian. Dr. Arian gave an engaging big picture presentation linking astronomy to the human experience. He challenged us to present an interrelated big picture approach when reaching out to the public during Star Party participation. His suggestion was to utilize astronomy outreach as an opportunity to portray the universe as one system rather than separate discrete branches of science. Refreshments were provided by Mike Hill. Tom McDonough adjourned the meeting at 9:30. Thanks.
Thank you. By the way, I should mention before we go over to the treasury report, it was a last minute thing, and I think most of you got the information, but we usually go to Chain Show Restaurant for our pre-meeting dinner, and the parking lot has been chained over, so we had to make a quick last minute change. Al Takeda took care of that, and we went to the House of Chains, that name just down the street here. So instead of going that way, if you go back toward the Alewife Brook from here, it's just a walk down the street. I guess we liked it enough that we've booked them for the rest of the duration. So, also, I did come prepared. Talked just earlier about this whole cardiac thing, and Mario's here tonight, so I wanted to become prepared just in case anything bad happens. I've got a surgical kit here. Now, I had the book Cardiac Surgery for Idiots, but since Mario's here, we don't need it. But just in case we have to open me up, I brought a tool. Definitely going to need anesthesia, so I brought anesthesia. And when all is done, got some duct tape, we can just patch me back. You gotta be able to joke about these things.
I saw that coming.
I could see Mario with that song. Okay. By the way, Ben, I'm going to embarrass you if you stand up for just a minute. This guy is a super astronomer. You're all familiar with the Messier Marathon, and you all know that I'm a double star fanatic, so I thought it's about time to have a corresponding marathon for double star fanatics. And I took advantage of my column in Astronomy magazine. I put together a list of 110 double stars that are visible in that same area from Pisces through Pegasus. And I actually double-checked the list with Jim Mullaney, who does a lot with double stars, and he gave it his blessing. And I put it out last year. And Ben, as far as I can say, there was a man named Jerry Olshan who writes for Sky and Telescope, and they both completed the whole thing. Ben did it in one night with used 2 telescopes, right? So essentially, you're looking at the first person who's ever completed this marathon. So that's. More recently, I did revisit it back in the March issue, and I got some more people on board. And right now, about a half dozen people have completed the whole marathon. I haven't. This is embarrassing, but last year I did the ones that were setting in the west. I wanted to check those out, and then I came down with a bug that pretty well wiped me out the next month. And of course, you know the situation this time. But I did go out for one evening. Again, I just want to check those western double stars to see how they're doing. But I've gotten some feedback from about 3 or 4 other people, including several astronomy clubs. And this thing looks like it's going to be able to fly, and hopefully I'll be healthy enough to do the whole thing next time. Again, nice job, Ben.
Double stars, double scopes, right?
Well, you used what, a 4.5 inch and a 10?
8.
An 8 and a 4, and you pulled an all-nighter. You're what, a high school junior right now?
Yeah.
I just got into it when I was a junior. That's when I first took my little 3-inch F10 Edmund out and looked at MISA. So I saw one double star compared to 110. All right, observing committee report. Bruce Berger is in here. Now, I'm going to actually try to go a little bit quickly here because we want to get Kevin up here to give his talk. There are 4 comets visible right now. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen any of them. The last time I was out was on my birthday back in March. It was one of the last clear nights we've had. Since then, it's been either cloudy or moony. But if anybody here has anything they want to say about any of these comets and give us an update on what they've seen. Anybody at all? Yes, go ahead, Steve.
We did, last month, we saw 41P Tuttle Giacobini Crescent, I think that's right. And it was very high up, it was visible. I was using my big scope, the 18-inch, but it was hard to say, maybe magnitude 11 or 12.
Okay. All right, thank you. Again, just check the internet to see what's going on. The moon is still just a little bit past full, but we're going to start to get the dark skies again. Large meteor shower. It's not a major shower, but this year the moon's going to be out of the way pretty much, so it's worth a look-see. And I was introduced to the shower years ago. My grandmother had passed away, and I just went outside the day of everything, and I was just kind of wistfully looking up at the sky, and it just happened. I was looking near Lyra, and bing, I saw a meteor. Well, big deal. They're always. But then within a few minutes, another one. Kind of the same, pointing from the same area. So I looked through, I was out for probably 15 minutes. I probably saw a half a dozen meteors, so I knew right away, it's got to be something, but there's no meteor shower in April. And I went in and looked, and it was a Lyric meteor shower. And a number of years later, in Ottewell's book, they pointed out, I believe it was 1983, there was an unusual intensity and activity, this particular meteor shower. And since the Romans believed that a meteor shower honored the death of a great person, I kind of spread that story to my family about how, look, my grandmother died and this meteor shower blazed in all its glory. Double transit of Jupiter, 2 moons, Io and Europa. And here's the neat thing about this. You look at the date, May 11th, 9:59 to 10:06. That's when our meeting next month will be closing up. So hopefully we'll have a couple telescopes set out in the parking lot there, and as you're leaving, you can take a look and see the 2 shadows of these moons. It's going to be a very short period of time because I believe as Io's is about to end, Europa's will just begin. So you'll have about 5 or 6 minutes or so to see both shadows before they're completely done with.
Glenn?
Yes?
Maybe we can set up the clock upstairs for that.
If you can arrange it, sure. We'll see, because we got to worry about the weather. We have a 30% chance here in New England. Sue French Fan Club, she talks about some galaxies in Leo, a couple of clusters of galaxies. She mentions M105, so I put that in because it's got a partner real next to it, NGC 3384. So you get to see 2 galaxies together. And that's a sketch I made with a 4.5-inch reflector, so a small telescope can pick both of these up. It is an elliptical galaxy. Good target for small scopes. You'll probably see a little more detail with a larger scope. The Las Vegas Astronomical Society, your Observer's Challenge this time is NGC 3395/6. It's this pair right up here. And Sue French actually featured these galaxies in the March issue of Sky and Telescope, so it's a nice coincidence. And I believe, Steve, we looked at that with, Rich Nugent was there. Rich is here, I think, tonight. We looked at that, and it was really very faint in your 18-inch, but it reminded me of just a very faint, almost like dove wings. But hopefully we'll get a better view and the sky's clear again. But that's the LVAS challenge. And I want to take a moment to really congratulate this class. I've been pushing this for about a year now, and one of the co-founders, Roger Ivester, recently joined this club. You see his email all the time on our website. But the most recent one was Herschel 3945, the double star, and more recently M67. And what has happened is the LVAS, the Las Vegas club, is they're not as many, they're kind of dropping out. And this club has picked up. Mario started by taking images of these objects. And the last particular one on M67, there were 2 people from LVAS, including Roger. There were 9 from this club, including Roger, since he's in both clubs. So I just want to applaud this group. You're really becoming observers now, and you've been tackling these different things. Even just a paragraph description is what a lot of people have done, but 9 of us in this club send in reports at this particular time. So that's an excellent job, and I thank you for your work on that. So we'll see how we do with these 2 galaxies. I also invited Roger to talk some of his favorite targets. We usually like to pick a member picks for the month, and what he did is he picked 2 galaxy groups. And I didn't put down the name NGC, that should be NGC 3187 galaxy group. And that's his sketch with a 10-inch scope, and that's a photograph up there of the same field of view so you can make a comparison. He's a very good sketcher. And also, he had the M84, M86 galaxy group. And you see it here in a photograph, and over here through his scope, in about a 1-degree field, I think. So 9 galaxies in a 1-degree field. And I'm going to turn over to Steve. That's not part of the Markarian chain, is it?
It's actually the beginning of where the Markarian chain is. But
Okay.
typically we see M84 and M86, the 2 brightest in that group, and the others are kind of optional. The spiral galaxy off to the left kind of forms a long triangle with M84 and 86.
Okay.
Those are normally visible. And if you see to the upper right, there's 2 galaxies side by side. That's the beginning of the Markarian chain.
The one's up here.
Up to the upper right.
Yeah,
Over
okay.
The 1, 2 o'clock position. And then the Markarian chain kind of curves off to the right. There are several sets of pairs of galaxies along the Markarian chain. Those are all doable. The brightest ones are doable in an 8-inch telescope at the clubhouse. The last 3 you showed, the 3190 group, is in the neck of Leo, and it's actually very easy to find. There's a chain of stars in the neck of Leo you can find in a 6x30 finder. And once you get on those stars, you'll see those galaxies. They're pretty obvious. 2 out of the 3 are obvious.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So lots to look at. Anybody have any comments, questions, anything observational? Okay. Steve, clubhouse report. Oh, thank you. You don't have to.
So we had a work party last month on March 11th on a Saturday at the clubhouse. We had 22 volunteers altogether. Thanks for everybody who pitched in. One of our big projects was finishing painting on the first floor of the clubhouse and refurbishing the grinding room, which we did. The month before we did the ceiling, and last month we actually did the walls themselves. And while we were there, we kind of cleaned up and organized some of the equipment and machinery. So it had its bicentennial cleaning, I guess, of ancient equipment. So anyway, it's in pretty good shape. So that's actually the final room that's been rehabbed in the clubhouse. We've done over every single room, including the hallways, the staircase, the evaporator room, the attics, the barns, completely in the clubhouse at least once. So if you haven't been there in a couple of years, come on by and take a look, and you can give us the kudos. So anyway, it was a long effort. We did a little every year, and it's pretty much complete now. At this point forward, we'll just be doing some touch-up here and there. We don't have any major rooms to do over anymore. Next, we had The Aereo Observatory, Jim Geddes could probably tell you a little more than I could, but it is operational. The dome works, the telescope works, the slit works, everything is copacetic at this time. And also, Al Takeda and Tom McDonough did a little update on our inventory of surplus equipment. We're trying to identify some telescopes to donate and to sell for the club that we are no longer using. We currently have about 50, that's 50 telescopes in our possession at the clubhouse. And many of them aren't being used year to year, so we're going to take a serious look at which ones that we can sell or give away at this time. The ones that are being used the most for lonoscopes, which is on the second floor telescope room, and the ones that we use in the field, which are open to any member to use, are on the first floor telescope room. Those we plan on keeping. Our next work party is in 48 hours, Saturday. Beginning at 10 o'clock, we have a few things to do outdoors. A little post-winter cleanup, pulling up the old the snow fence. We have some regrading of the lawn to do because one of our stellar plow drivers drove over the lawn and ripped it up. A nice big swath. So we're going to try and patch that up on Saturday. Do some seeding as well. And also, it'll be a good day for people to come up and talk about the eclipse trip and what equipment they're planning on bringing, and maybe you want to bring it along and have people look at it. And as always, we want to have members, new members especially, bring their equipment to the clubhouse, and we always have people around who can help you out, whether it's learning the new equipment or tuning up what you have.
Thank you, Steve. Announcements. Dick Coolidge just reminded me. According to the bylaws, we have to pick 6 people to be voted on for nominating committee. I didn't do it because apparently everybody on the board is ready to come back again. So I'm going to look into this and see. Maybe some people that want to run for an office, I'll look into it more. But I'll email you about that. So it's not like I'd forgotten, but it's like everybody's coming back, and I'm very pleased that that's the situation. Some announcements. Is this where you had to rework the? Okay, I'm going to
go to the next one. Go to the next one.
All right. I'm going to read a couple of announcements when the lights are on here, and then we'll get back to that. So we want. Hi, there we go. I'm going to read a couple of announcements that I can while he's getting set up here. I don't know if it was in. I think it was in Sky and Telescope. They mentioned a new organization called Astronomy on Tap, which kind of sounds like a good idea. And I got this email, actually it was passed on to me from Chris. I am Diana Dragomir, an astronomer at MIT. A few of us here have started the Boston chapter of Astronomy on Tap this year. The events take place in a pub and consist of short astronomy talks, astronomy news, and thematic games with prizes. We think some of your members might be interested in our events, and we are hoping you can help us spread the word. More info for the next Boston event and future events can be found on facebook.com AO Boston. The thing is, AOT Boston. The thing is, it was sent out through ATMoB Discuss, so I could also put it on ATMoB Announce if anybody's interested. But this sounds like a good idea. It's not the second Thursday of every month because nobody will show up here. And actually, if I think we were talking earlier, if I had gone to one of these Astronomy on Tap meetings and had a few beers and then gone to this telescope, Neptune would have looked more like Jupiter without alcohol in my breath. So, but that sounds like a kind of a neat thing. The next meeting again is going to be next Monday, this coming Monday, 7:30 p.m. The topic will be the dark side of exoplanets and the universe in a box. And it's going to be at the Phoenix Landing in Cambridge. So if anybody's interested, something to do next Monday. The next thing, which I think, how many of you are familiar with surplus shed? It's kind of, to me, like the only thing we have that's almost similar to the old Edmund Scientific. And I picked up some pretty neat things there. You're not getting the greatest fantastic quality, but they do sell some pretty good stuff. And this email was sent to me, so you might want to check the surplus shed website when you get home, because I'm not sure how long this is going to be available. But apparently they're selling a Wallensack brand 20 to 60 power 80 millimeter spotting scope for $95. And you can get the particulars on why these prices are so low if you go to their website. It might be something you might be interested in. Also, they have a mounted achromatic telescope lens, 127 millimeters, which is about 5 inches, 1200 millimeter focal length. They're selling it for $189. It's mounted in the cell, airspace, the whole thing. And finally, if you want to go a little bit bigger, they have a 6-inch mounted achromatic telescope lens. 153 millimeters, that's 6 inches, 1200 millimeter focal length there, and that's for $325. So if you're really into making a refractor, that sounds like a good deal. Yes?
Did it specify who actually manufactured the glass?
It says Wallensack brand. I don't know if that means it's specifically Wallen, just as Wallensack brand. I don't think they could say if it wasn't. I know they do sell Wallensack. I've seen their microscope eyepieces, so I have no reason to believe that's not
I know
the
for
case.
the longest time they were selling Jaeger's lenses on that.
Well, it's worth a check, definitely. And I do it quickly because I don't. This email was forwarded to me by somebody, I think, in the Washington, D.C. area, so I don't know how long this is going to last. But you can also, when you go to the Surplus Shed website, you can get their phone number, just call directly.
Wallensack went out of business, they acquired all this stuff.
That's the deal, okay. Some of you may remember Paul Reaney. He used to make homemade eyepieces, and some of those eyepieces were pretty good for 20, 15, 20 bucks. It was a gamble, but he had a 30 millimeter wide field eyepiece that I picked up, and I showed it. I can't remember who it was in ATMoB because it was many years ago, but he liked it so much he bought a couple of those for people who were making telescopes at the clubhouse. So again, Surplus Shed is a good place to look into bargains sometimes if you're looking for something that's inexpensive. Okay, we ready for the announcements?
Yes.
John, do you need the lights dimmed? Or?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Let's
Thank you.
see if that is, how do I remember the slide?
It's
Oh, okay. I'm hitting it, and it's refusing to cooperate. There we go. Okay.
perfect. Thank you, Glenn.
Anytime.
So, tomorrow the annual Cambridge Science Festival begins. And one of the opening events they have planned is I guess you'd call it a panel discussion or conference, I'm not sure what to call it, but it's an event at Sanders Theater entitled Are We Alone? Exploring the possibility of intelligent life in the universe. Now, there are going to be some luminaries there whose names you might have heard of that are familiar in the astrobiological community. For example, Frank Drake. How many people know who Frank Drake is? Okay, excellent. He's one of the, well, back in the 1960s, he developed what we call the Drake equation, an attempt to quantify how many intelligent communicating civilizations there might be in a galaxy. And since then, we've refined those numbers, and people have done a lot of speculation. But he's going to be there. Dimitar Sasolov, who works here at Harvard, is going to be there. Sarah Sager, who I believe addressed the club one time here. She's an exoplanetary researcher. Seth Stoshak, who's the senior astronomer at the SETI Institute. So that goes from 7:30 to 9:30 at Sanders Theater. Now, when they get out, they are going to be directed to us at the Sidewalk Astronomy event, which hopefully will be ready to go by 9 to catch some of the early people that leave. And that's going to be in the plaza outside of the Harvard Science Center. And I will give you a map. So we are actually going to be right here. In fact, specifically, we're going to be right here. This is the entrance to the Science Center. We're going to be right here. So as you're looking at the Science Center, it'll be slightly to the left of the entrance. And the reason we chose that location is because from there you get a nice view to the south, southeast, and southwest. Jupiter will be in the southeast, and it will easily clear all the buildings and the trees for our viewing pleasure, and you're free to look at whatever other objects you need. Now, we have permission to drive our cars onto the plaza as long as we don't run over any Harvard students, and we can unload our equipment right on the plaza. And then we can put our cars in a nearby parking lot right here. It's called the Lit Tower parking lot, also known as the law school parking lot. So you can either drive on Kirkland Street and drive onto the plaza there and just drop off your equipment and then move your car over here. By the way, we'll have 5 volunteers from the Cambridge Science Festival. If you need someone to watch your equipment while you're parking, or if you need somebody to help you carry things from your vehicle, they are available for that purpose. So again, you can either drive on Kirkland Street onto the plaza, or there's you can go from, yeah, let's see, from here you can go, where are we? Littow. So you can go down this path and get out to Oxford Street.
Don, by the way, I know this parking lot because I actually work at Croft.
Okay.
So actually, the entrance to the linear parking lot, which is here, actually you have to go past near Maxwell, between Maxwell Dworkin and Pierce Hall. So it's way down here. You drive down this path to get to the linear center parking lot. There is no path in here. It's all
Sorry
way
about
up
that.
here.
Yeah.
That's the entrance up here.
Okay, thank you, Al, for clarifying that. So again, we can park in a Littow lot for the duration of the event and pick up our cars and unload and load up again afterwards. There are 3 light poles, one here, one here, one here. They're gonna shut off for the duration. There's also some LED circled benches that they're gonna turn off for us to make it nice and dark. So that's it, basically. We need scopes. We're probably gonna get a lot of people. I think 5 people are signed up now on the ATMoB website. We could certainly use more. We have up to 8 parking spots available to us. So that's the deal for tomorrow night. Now, following that, again, these are Cambridge Science Festival related events. Next Thursday here will be our regular CFA Public Astronomy Night. The topic is mapping the heavens. This is a lady that just put out another book, so that might be interesting. On Saturday here, we are going to have an Astronomy Day star party. And that's from 8:30 to 10:30, and you have the choice of either bringing your scope up to the roof of the CFA here, we will help you do that, or you can set up your scope in the parking lot here. The parking lot will be roped off to vehicles, except those maybe dropping off their equipment. And then the following day, and the reason it's the following day is that Saturday, the first part of the day is the March of Science, March for Science, excuse me, and a lot of CFA people here are going to be going down to DC, but they're also having events on the Boston Common. So that's on Saturday. On Sunday, we're going to have the usual Cambridge Explores the Universe, which is a daytime event. There'll be solar observing. I assume they need solar scopes.
John, the time up there says 6:30.
Oh, it should be 4:30, excuse me. 4:30 to...
I thought you said 12.
12 to 4, thank you. So that's purely a daytime event. There'll be no nighttime observing. Okay, any questions? Great, so I hope people do show up. Should be an exciting week.
Now we'll get set back to the regular, I guess. Couple of changes here.
Oh,
Thank you. While Al's doing that, actually, I've been getting some emails from Jim Mulaney. Some of you old timers probably remember, he still does some writing. He's the author of that Cambridge Double Star Encyclopedia, Atlas. And he had a couple of, he's very traditional, if you will. And he sent me a couple of these. He said, I'd rather freeze and fight off mosquitoes than play astronomy on a computer. The high-tech devices pervading the market today are ruining the spirit of the real meaning of recreational astronomy. I guess that could be debatable for a number of people. Whatever happened to what amateur astronomers really care about, simply enjoying the beauty of the night sky? He's very traditional in that way. He's very happy with just, in fact, his wife just recently bought him an 8-inch job just to do some casual stargazing. He's 77 years old now, so he's getting up there in years. Okay, we're ready to pick up again? Okay, go ahead. This is James Sin. Okay, James Sin's going to talk about a project that he's interested in. You want the lights dimmed again? Or keep them, okay.
Either, it doesn't matter. So I went down to the Astro Imaging Conference in New York last week and NEAF on the weekend, and there was an astronomer from the Keck Observatory was there, who in his spare time, he is one of a group of people who are doing this thing they're calling Project Panoptes. They're trying to get citizen scientists, normal folks or schools, individuals, to participate in an exoplanet survey. So they designed, this unit here, which is the result of going through a lot of, wooden mock-ups and prototypes, and so they're looking to get people involved in this, and I found this a really exciting sounding project, so I'm going to participate. And I'm soliciting other interested parties, because I would like to build one of these units, and I don't actually have a great place to host it. My front yard, backyard have lots of trees, so while I can debug it at my house, etc., I will ultimately need a place to put it long term. And then I think it'd also be a great project to work with a school group on. Because they would get the opportunity to, do some building, assemble some electronics, see the results. And the nice thing about the design that the project has come up with for the software is, while they have a plan for these are the things we want to observe, given your location, this is what you can see, it's easy to override it and have it shoot whatever's up in the sky that night that you want to see. So it's not just here, make it, and you don't get a lot of benefit. You can participate and use it yourself. Anyway, so and while I was at the imaging conference, I won a door prize, which was, and I mentioned this on the ATMoB Discuss group, that I won this nice camera rotator, which is completely not what I need for assembling one of these. So if anybody's interested in taking a look at the camera rotator, I have it with me tonight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of things. I really want to get Kevin up here. Michael Deneen was kind enough to bring this field lamp back there. I brought one a couple of months ago. A lot of you were interested, so Mike will be around to, if you have any questions about the assembly of that. It's really a neat gadget. There he is right there. I was looking in the back. You had your hand up.
Well, we are supposed to elect the nominee.
Oh, you were talking to somebody that brought that up, so, but go ahead.
Well, the bylaws specify that we have a nominating committee. Even if the officers would like to continue, the nominating committee is not under any obligation to actually use them. It's up to them to nominate a slate of officers. And also, there is a procedure for other people who are not nominated, if they would like to run for one of the offices. There is a procedure for them for getting signatures and submitting them to the secretary, that kind of thing. So it is something we are supposed to do.
Okay, I'll put that out on the internet then.
But we have to do it now.
Yeah,
It's
right
April.
now.
It's
Okay.
April.
So if somebody wants to, what if a person wants to run, they're not here?
No, that's a different thing.
Yeah, the way the nominating
Pick
committee
six
works is
nominees.
you select 6 people as potential candidates. The club votes, and the top 3 vote getters are the ones who are in the
All right, can we
All right.
put that screen up really quick? Let's do this fast, because I know we, just, there's a whiteboard here, so I can write on the whiteboard.
There's a raise the screen button.
Here we go, I got some.
We're going to need some balance.
And then we'll do a quick vote, I guess. Sorry about that. All right, anybody that's willing to be on the nominating committee? Okay. SYNGE, right?
Right.
Anybody else? This is the thing, is pulling teeth to get 6 people.
What exactly is the nominating committee?
They pick out any, if we have to have any board members elected, the nominating committee just goes, does a search and picks people that want those positions, and then we take a vote on that. I think it's at the June meeting or the annual meeting. Who is it again, Al?
Yeah.
Glenn, up here. Up here.
Oh!
Up there.
Okay, Mike, thank you. I just want to get, I don't want to treat this lightly, but can the president be on the nominating committee?
No, because you're running.
Yeah. you
No,
should-
no, the nominating committee can nominate themselves.
Yeah,
That's,
but
I thought that was.
it's
no, it's in Robert's
generally,
rules.
It's because we got a guy from Amherst that has to get home. I don't want this meeting, the talk to start at 10 o'clock. Please name again.
Eileen, she knows everything.
Did you raise your hand or is he volunteering you?
We always do, every year, it's a tradition.
Oh, okay, Mario Mata.
Eileen.
We need one more.
I'll do it.
Hi.
Chris, up top.
Chris
Challenge.
Oh, Chris, thank you.
All right, we need some ballots, it's a secret ballot.
yeah, let's see if we can find something.
You have paper?
You know what, but a couple people get pencils and paper, just we'll keep this thing going here.
Want me to tear? Yes, no?
Yeah.
All right. Now, I naively thought that if ever, I've been working with the whole board to get their okays, and everybody seemed to be on board, so I didn't realize you still had to nominate, a nominating
One
committee.
for every voting member.
Okay, because last year was a battle because only 3 people wanted to do it, and I said we were all set to go, and they said, no, you have to pick 6 and vote on the 6, so. And I don't want to be one to change the bylaws, but it'd be kind of nice to do something that's really quick and efficient.
Start passing it.
Yep, pass them around.
Does anybody want to make a speech on why they don't?
Those that are members can vote.
Make the ATMoB great again.
Members,
Oh.
members.
All right. See somebody who's kind of.
Vote early, vote often.
that one.
While we're doing that,
Go ahead, Eileen.
this is old business. I might have one more copy of the Observers, Royal Astronomical Society's Observers Handbook, 2017, if anyone needs a copy. $10. It's 3 months, 4 months. It's everything everyone knows. Okay.
Jim Morris. Jim and Roller. Folks, listen. Just so we don't waste any time, Jim and Rhoda Morris, Jim's been working on a telescope here. It's a mock-up of Newton's first reflecting telescope. He's 90 years old, but he didn't get the original directions directly from Newton. It's been a while, but go ahead. He's going to show you what he's got. So I know you're voting, but give him your attention too.
Need more paper. We have more?
Okay, you vote for 3, and the top 3 vote getters are the committee, and the top vote getter is the chairman of the committee, and the committee has to be unanimous in their nominations.
Anybody need?
Who's collecting the ballots?
He and I will collect the ballots.
And the nominating committee nominates a full slate of officers.
Once we collect the ballots,
So, Dick, we nominate
vote for 3. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Vote for 3.
Anybody need a piece of paper?
it's sort of like
You have to be a member.
election in November.
I'll collect, yeah. I need to vote for the whole
Yeah, we'll wait till everybody's settled down.
Like Texas.
All right, Bernie, here you go.
All the way to Texas. Texas.
James? Jim Morris, okay.
What are we supposed to vote for, what?
3 people.
3 of those.
Sit down.
Sit down.
It's
Or move on the way.
James Singe, Al Slisky, Mike Hill, Glenn Chappell, Eileen Myers, Chris Elledge. Pick 3.
Okay, are there any more ballots?
And what I'll do is I'll put out something on the internet, who would like to run for an office.
1 minute.
I think Ariane is planning on joining the club and running for president, so I may have some competition here. Okay, you guys come in the back, I'll get Jim up here.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Jim, why don't you come up again? Again, Jim has made a mock-up of Newton's first telescope, the reflecting telescope. We want to talk a little bit about it, and we'll let him take over.
Well, I'll just take over. We're coming here because we had a good experience with you guys a couple of years ago. We were asked by the Galileo Museum in Florence to build replicas of their telescopes. I came here, we talked a little bit about it, and it's great. When you want to get something done, you go to a place where something's happening. Lots of things are happening here. We've been called by the Chinese government, and they're building the world's largest planetarium. And in that planetarium, they would like to have us make several telescopes. One is Newton's, the other one is Galileo's, and then there's a guy named Herschel. Now, what I'm here for is simple. Come on up here.
He's looking for help.
She's my boss. I get $2 a day. That's hardly enough for what we're doing.
He gets room and board.
Yeah, so the Herschel's telescope is this ungodly mess of lumber.
That's the 7-footer.
Yeah.
He made a 40-footer also. They'd like a
Whoa,
small version of that.
So one of the requests is a Galileo telescope. Now this has only got bits and pieces of it, and it's under progress. Now why am I at this? So what we do is we help out any museum in science to build replicas, and we've been very successful because we've had a lot of help. This club is terrific. What we would like to do is invite you to do the following. We have 3 telescopes to build, and then the delivery. Now, we would like people, if you want to join us in this effort, there's a lot of things to do. For example, we could have, if somebody wants to make a 6.5-inch mirror with a 7-foot focal length, that would be wonderful. Anything that you guys want to do will cover the cost of what you're up about, okay? But coming here to have you guys help us in this project gives this club, it already has an international, but at least you'll be known well for the help you've given us in China. Now, we can take a look. I've showed you what that telescope looks like. We're in the process, there's a whole series of drawings of these telescopes. And we've been able to get other people to give us pictures and drawings of that sort of thing. So what are we asking for? We're asking for recommendations, we're asking for time, if you would like to try to build one of the mirrors and that sort of thing. And then there's a lot of little things that we could do. So I don't want to take up much more of your time, but you come to a place where everything goes well, there's a lot of noise going on all the time. Now, who are we and how do you get in touch with us? How do you do that?
Jim and Rhoda.
Yeah, Jim and Rhoda Morris.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we could put maybe a note in on
You
your
can email
website.
me, we'll put something on maybe our next newsletter too.
So you helped a lot. The telescopes that we did build, replicas, they're all over the world. They've been served a wonderful situation. One of the things we would like them to do, the museums, is to take the damn telescopes and cut them in half on display, because there's nothing like looking at the inside of it, even if there's not much there. So we have to convince them to do these sort of things. When we did that for the museum in Florence, the crowd always went to look at ours taken apart telescope. That works. Now, the Chinese building the biggest is a great opportunity, but they do have problems with transferring information and money and things of that sort. So we'll put something on the website, and if anybody would like to join us in any way, especially maybe grinding a lens, 6.5 inches, 7/4, that would be great. We'll suffer all the expenses. So, thank you for listening. I hope somebody gives a hand. After all, I'm 70. No, add 20 years to that. So thank you very much.
Anybody who knows the language they speak in Shanghai, please come forward.
Yeah. And if you go to the website and look for Jim and Rhoda Morris, you'll probably come to our sites. We've got 6 domain names, and we talk about everything, including we do movies and that sort of stuff. So we need your help, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Jim, you said the Chinese are looking for plastic telescopes? Let's start a war. Okay, we can get back to things here. Yeah, we had a lot of announcements, but I tell you, it's been very worthwhile tonight. A lot of good things going on, and we'll keep things going again on our website while we're getting set up again. The website seems to be pretty well set. It'll never be perfect. It'll always need to be changed, but the website seems to be down pat. So I will be working with the board to come up with our next project. I'm kind of looking toward our outreach program, just getting things going. But let's see, is there any old business we have to keep up with a review? Sold. New business. Yes, go ahead,
I just
Julie.
want to remind people about the March for Science
Yeah.
on Boston Common. We're having a sister march, or a brother march, call it what you will, to the one that's in Washington. And I think in this day and age, they're saying that we're taking a stand because we believe in publicly funded science, science education, and science-based policy, defending the vital role that science plays in our health, economy, safety, and environment. So there are speakers 2 to 4, there's kids stuff 1 to 2, there'll be music, and it's just showing support for continuing to fund science, which I know we're all interested in. So,
Listen, I did contact CFA about that. I think
the
John mentioned already,
22nd.
their scientists who go, most of these
It's on
times are
Earth
going
Day.
down to Washington.
Yeah.
But John, just to review, you said there was a tie-in with the Cambridge Science Festival? Like there are things going on at the festival and then go over to the march?
So we go to the march first, if you want to do that, and then afterwards will be the Astronomy Day activities here.
Do you mind putting something out and discuss and announce just as a reminder
Of course.
for the general
Of
membership?
course, I will do that.
Okay, great, thank you. No new business.
I have something.
Oh my, you counted them, right?
Glad we got one more back here.
Yes, oh hi, go ahead.
Might there be someone that could show me how to use my telescope? It's set up about a mile from here at my house, overlooking the convention center. I need someone to help me use my telescope. It's a Meade Cassegrain. It's not new, but it should be working.
Your name, please?
Joyce Cavallo.
Joyce, you gonna be able to stay for the next half hour or so, or an
Yeah.
hour or so for the talk?
Yeah.
Okay, if somebody could meet with Joyce after, we'll get somebody to get in touch with you and help you how to take care of that.
What channel is it? Mead what?
Cassegrain.
8, 10 inch, LX200, GPS.
L200.
Okay, here are the final results. James Singh, right?
Sing, yeah.
Singh, 26, you got the top votes, you're in. Mike Hill with 22 votes, and Eileen Myers with 22 votes as well. That's our nominated committee. I'll put out something again. I'll send out a message with discuss and announce just to see if anybody does want to run for any positions, and then if not, then we're pretty well set to go.
Yeah, I can read you the section of the bylaws if you want.
You know what, let's pass it, because we gotta get this guy here before midnight, but I got the bylaws myself, sorry, we gotta get going here. Our next month's speaker is Kelly Beatty from Astronomy Magazine, or from Sky and Telescope, my Freudian slip. He heard that moan. But he was originally gonna talk an update about Pluto, He'd also suggested doing a talk about the graying of astronomy. There aren't that many Ben Ruppels that are joining astronomy clubs right now. Ben brought our average down, so now the average age in this club, I think, is 93.4. We're getting down there, so thank you, Ben. But Kelly's going to talk. He did a sky and telescope trip to Chile, and he's going to talk about that at the next month's meeting, so that'll be our speaker at that time. And now, tonight's speaker is Kevin Collins. I've got a bio here I'll read. And actually, I met up with Kevin at the 5A Club, Amherst Area Amateur Astronomy Association. I gave a talk there a couple months ago. And his topic is a 13.1-inch Coulter Odyssey I turned ultra-compact project. After you've heard this, you may want to reconsider bidding on this particular gem over there. In 2006, Kevin Collins, a member of the Amherst Area Astronomers Association, undertook a reconstruction of his 13.1-inch Coulter Odyssey I into an obsession-style truss tube scope to make it more portable. While that overall goal was achieved, the height of its altitude bearing still meant it would not fit under the cover in the bed of his pickup truck. As a result, it often had to ride shotgun if wet weather forecast going to and from observing events. I mean, somebody probably had to sit in the bed of the truck so you could protect your telescope. You got to go with your priorities. In 2017, Kevin again reconstructed his 13.1-inch scope, this time into an ultra-compact instrument of his own design that would fit in the bed of his truck. Join us as he, using pictures and the telescope itself, explains the design and construction process. He will talk about everything from laminating maple veneers for his focuser board to the intricacy of using torque worksheets to get that elusive balance and buttery smooth motion we all strive for. Kevin is a software developer for ATC Associates in Agawam, Mass., the assistant winemaker for Mineral Hills Winery in Florence, Mass., president of the Pioneer Valley Winemaker Society, so you type that in with the astronomy on tap, and we got a really good party going here. And he's former president of the Amherst Area Amateur Astronomers Association. He is also a member of the Aruna Hill Natural Science Center and the Springfield Stars Club. 15 years ago, he purchased the Coulter Odyssey I for $50. That's not bad. Beginning his adventures in amateur astronomy and telescope making. Over the years, Kevin has built a 4.5-inch F8 Classic Daub, restored a 4-inch F15 Steinheil refractor found in a dump. It's about to be compacted, right? Yep. Reconstructed a 13-inch Coulter Odyssey I into a truss tube scope and built a 20-inch F5 truss tube scope. The latter created an incredible journey for Kevin, his father and brother, to work together on a project in their adult lives. Beyond telescope making, he enjoys deep sky and visible light solar observing with family and friends. Kevin is also an avid cyclist, hiker, photographer, and amateur winemaker. He lives with his partner in Northampton, Massachusetts. Kevin, the floor is yours.
How's everyone doing? Still or why I play with this? Good. Tom Whitney's doing wonderful. Let's see what we got. Projector on. There it goes. Ah, there we go. Sweet.
We'll get the lights.
All right. Yeah. Normally I drive this with my phone, but I'm close enough to the iPad. So I want to thank you all for letting me come out and talk tonight. We had a great talk from Glenn a couple months ago back at the 5As out in Amherst. It was an awesome talk, and I sent them a couple of websites with build pictures for the projects that I do, and he invited me to come out and see you guys. So here we are. As Glenn had mentioned in the beginning of this in my introduction there, I had built. I'd gotten hold of the mirror, not the whole monster over there. I mean, nice telescope. I had gotten hold of just the mirror on Astromark from a gentleman. He had it tested, sent me the test data, put it out for sale. It was like $300. And I said, oh, that'll be fun to build a nice truss tube telescope. And that was the original scope. Not that one, but the truss tube design. And I did this using Krieg's The Obsessions Dobsonian Telescope book by Krieg and Barry, with some minor changes here and there. But so this project was done, my brother and father and I worked on this. My brother is actually he's a craftsman, builds homes frame to finish. My father, over 42 years of his life, was a welder. So we got to take those skills and build the tailgate you guys will see in a few minutes. And I'm the nerd, so pulled out the book and started drawing some plans in CAD and working with some torque worksheets, and out came that scope. I had a beautiful scope, used it for a while, but again, I had to ride shotgun in my truck, which I didn't really like. Airbags and all of that. So I decided to change the design a little bit so that I could carry it around a lot easier and also fit it in my truck where it should be riding and not with me. But think of this, 13 inches of aperture. There it is. So that's the big deal. Easy to move, easy to take out. It is a telescope that I use the most. You know, I do have a big brother, a 20-inch, but that one probably goes out about maybe 7 or 8 times a year. Weighs more than I do when it's set up. So there it is. So what I'm actually going to do is have turn the lights up, and I'm actually going to put this together so that as we go through the construction pictures, I can kind of show you how it came to be. Why I do that? Speaking of the winemaking stuff. Has anybody been to Google Earth yet to see where the location of greatest duration is for this eclipse in August? Yeah, so I'm floating around on Google Earth and looking around, zooming into that point, and what do I see? Grapevines. There's a winery that essentially the location of the greatest eclipse is actually in the backyard of a winery. The name escapes me, but so I naturally had to call them and find out if they had any space available for the party they were having, and pretty much told me that they didn't have space about 2 hours after they announced it. So that's going to be a fun day.
Well, we're doing the eclipse at a winery.
Nice. Whereabouts?
In near Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah. Cool.
That's the ATMoB trip.
Great.
Your weather prospects double if you go west of the Mississippi.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we, 2 of us actually have a trip planned, kind of a 2-week cross-country road trip from hopefully a good place. We're going to head out toward Wyoming and Oregon and play around out there, and then do a whole bunch of stuff on the way back we don't quite know yet. That is if we don't kill each other. We're really good friends. We have slightly different political views. That's all I need to say. So,
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong on a 14-day road trip? So, all right. So as I put this together, the lower pole seats and the upper sockets are from Moonlight. On the original scope, you can see here I had several pieces I had built for pole seats and stuff by hand. And this time I decided that I would, to save weight and other things, I would go with some manufactured stuff. So that's what I did. Sometimes this goes well, sometimes it doesn't. That time it didn't. Oh, not sitting right. I do not have a light shroud with this tonight. I'll lock him in for that. Every once in a while I don't see quite right. There we go. Beautiful. It's funny. Both the 20-inch and this one, I set them both up to use digital setting circles and never put them on. A couple of reasons I chose that: I like the hunt. Give me a good set of star charts or Sky Safari or something like that. Off I go. And I also can get the 20-inch out of the back of my truck set up and ready to go, collimation and all, before my buddy with his 10-inch Schmidt has that thing set up and aligned. There we go. Ben, can I borrow you for a second? Spotlight. Can you hold this for me, just like that, please? Thank you. I normally have an eyepiece case that does that. We'll talk about your contract in a few minutes. So what I'm putting on the bottom of the telescope are counterweights. That's by design. I worked very hard on the original design of this telescope and the 20-inch to make sure that it never had to use counterweights. A lot of math ahead of time. And as I hang these, I'll tell you what I mean. When you build a big 20-inch telescope, when you build a big 20-inch telescope, you actually have to build the mirror box, which takes about 30 hours of time. You actually have to build the mirror box 2 inches too deep, do the rest of your math to determine where you think that that thing needs to be set for depth so the telescope will balance. And then you take that 30 hours worth of work, you throw it on the table saw and hack off the bottom and hope you were right. Both the 13 and the 20 I got right on that. Dumb luck. Just a lot of math, having to weigh wood and do other things. Awesome, you can let go now. Thank you. Perfect, thanks.
Oh, wow, I was waiting for that.
So we gotta avoid that one again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. I got this little guy. Normally it doesn't go up to anywhere, but it's really dark. That's just Kydex from the upper end of another scope. And there it is. So now that it's set up, I can actually, I usually use a Howie Glatter laser and do some Barlow collimation on them. Both the truss scopes, and it's pretty quick and really accurate. So.
Your spot for Telluride?
Not a Telluride, but a little Teleview quick point, a little red dot, actually fits right here. And telescope's long enough, I can generally aim from the back and get pretty close. So here are the stats. I won't read them all for you, but you can kind of run down them. So it is a 13.1-inch mirror. Actually tested this was 4.39. They were made to be 4.5, but it was a Coulter mirror. It was somewhere in there. So focal length, all the numbers we all can pretty much calculate with several online things. So the tailgate itself in the mirror cell is an 18-point flotation cell. Overkill, most people would do 9, except for this mirror is anywhere between 0.9 inches and 1.25 inches in thickness. And it's not flat on the back. So I figure with 18 points, that thin of a piece of glass, this will balance it out a little more and give it some ability to work a little better. Plus it makes all the triangles a little bit smaller, so the airflow around the mirror works a little better. And later on, I actually set this up a little too close, but we'll, people can take a look at that, the business end a little bit later. So the spider itself came from Protostar. Anybody heard of Protostar? FBI? Yeah. Nice guy. If you actually go to his website and look at his catalog, the 13-inch secondary cage and my 20-inch secondary cage are the advertisements for his 4-beam spider. So that's that. What's neat about these, his spiders, is that the secondary holder is actually mounted on a polycarbonate shaft, and it bends. And that's such that you pull the entire thing tight on the adjusting screws, and there's a little what they call the pressure plate here. And once you set it, it stays locked. I can ride around in the truck with that thing for days, set the telescope up, and that's the mirror I don't have to touch. Works pretty good. So JMI, I went with a focuser. Now, in order to make something like this ultra compact, you want to limit the weight up top as much as you possibly can. And so that's eliminate one of the rings, eliminate all the stuff in between, go with really light bracketing for your spider, and then you want to go with a really, really light spider that's strong. The RCF focusers from JMI are pretty cool. They have one drive block that is that holds the entire draw tube. There's nothing on the other side up here, and they'll take hand grenades and anything else really with no trouble. So it's a nice focuser, single speed, but really smooth. So the Teleview red dot and Moonlight stuff. The only thing, I did buy some stuff from Obsession. They put these altitude bearings, these cast ones, on their 12.5-inch classic Dobbs. Worked perfect for this project because I didn't want anything in here. The second you close that bearing off, now you've got to pop the poles on the outside, and you could have to, in some cases, make the mirror box bigger since you want to move the poles to the inside, and that of course changes how structurally sound it is. It's all about making that mirror box compact and making the upper end light. And those two things make a very smooth and strong telescope.
Kevin, you mentioned cutting out a ring. What do you mean by that?
I'll show you. You got some pictures coming. Classic, ebony star with virgin Teflon, 15 pounds per square inch. So you get that motion that we like to have. And then the counterweights are by design. They have to be there because I shorten that mirror box. So I don't have the 13 pounds hanging 11 inches down, it's only 3. So we have to compensate for that. So compromises, it's the whole thing in this hobby, right? Especially with telescopes. So designed and built about 85 hours. And it actually saw first light back in 2014. I started it around March of that year. So.
Right at Tom's house.
What's that?
Right at
Right up the road.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tom.
All right, so CAD drawings, don't have to do this stuff to build these scopes. I decided to because that's what I do. CAD drawings are great because if you have access to a plotter at work, you can print things out full size and you have templates to lay out on your plywood and do your work, and it's a little easier to do.
Excuse me, back here.
Yep.
I didn't actually look at the links that you sent, so is all this stuff there? All the CAD drawings and stuff? Links that you sent to the club website?
Oh, no, but it can be.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, that's obviously the secondary cage. One of the things I did with this scope is most people, when they build these scopes, and if you look at the Odyssey I over here, that focuser sticks out the side at 90 degrees. I decided to take the cage in this one and rotate it up about 30, and that makes it to where I can sit in an observer's chair and I'm not looking in sideways when I'm down in the lower parts of the sky. So this action of just turning this that 30 degrees makes it a little more comfortable to use. So then I did a CAD drawing here, just of the focuser, and this is actually to start determining how big the focuser board is going to be and how everything's going to line up and measurements from the top of the ring. Because when you build these scopes, you build the secondary cage first. That's because that's the thing that's going to hang out on the end, and that's what's going to determine a lot of your balance. So you build the secondary cage first, then you build your tailgate, and then you wrap that mirror box around it. You take it out and test it, make sure you got your lengths proper, and then you start throwing all of the information in the torque worksheets and how much the wood weighs and per square foot, how many square feet you're using, and eventually you come out with a design. So, we're going to start with the fun part. This is the focuser board. Notice that focuser board is hanging on to this is a 14 millimeter Explore Scientific 100-degree eyepiece. Pretty heavy. Holding it with no problem. And it's because it's curved. So what I did to build the focuser board was I made a jig, and actually we used that on somebody else's scope. You can see where I drilled a hole out of it for the focuser in the first one. Filled that in, sanded it all smooth again. Built this curved jig using a router to the curve of the focuser board that I wanted. And the neat thing is, I wanted a focuser board that's a 1/4 inch thick. So I make this big block of wood, or actually one piece at a time, but I take a square and I put it in a jig and cut out the middle with a 1/4 inch router bit. And that way when you clamp everything together, what comes out is 1/4 inch thick with the right radius on each side. So what I did was I took 9 or 11 plies of maple veneer from a hardwood store, and I laid them down on that curved jig, and put wood glue over the first one, and then I put down the second one with the grain crossed the other way. I made a piece of plywood out of it, and then clamped it together for a week. And then once it was done, these are just the edges. Took it out, put it on a bandsaw so I could then use the CAD drawing to cut out the actual shape of the board. There it is. So that's what we end up with, and it's very rigid, very strong. And then now what we're going to do is I laid out the sheet of plywood so that I can start cutting out this upper ring. I have the spider on there that I had pulled out of the first version of the scope, and then the blocks for moonlight. So then that 1/4 inch router bit again, just ran it into the plywood before I cut the ring out. That's where the focuser board will seat. And there I am with a simple circle jig, starting to cut out the circles. If anybody wants to do this themselves and hasn't done woodworking with a router before to cut circles, when you're cutting a ring like this, you got to cut out the outside first. Because if you cut out the inside, you're done. You don't have anything to, yeah.
Quick question about it.
Yeah.
Can you see the slides okay?
Yeah, how's the light back
I
there?
know you want to be able to see the telescope and the slides. Everybody's okay? We can leave the lights as they are? Okay. Thank you.
And stop me at any time, because I just want to. Speaking of Tom Whitney, yeah, so this is my friend Tom, longtime president of the Amherst Club. Came by one day. He likes to visit when I'm working on telescope projects and other things, so I put him to work. So there's the ring cut out. This is the first test fit of that rough focuser board. There's no glue or anything. I just popped it in the cutout that I made for it and set the focuser on top. That's a really neat part of the process, and for those of you that build telescopes know this. It's neat as you go to start putting the parts together and doing those raw fit and going, oh hey, this is going to look like, okay, good. Yeah, so now what I needed to do, these little black pieces of angle iron here are just aluminum, and they would become, I was trying to figure out how I was going to get this spider to mount, and I didn't want to use wood because it would have been a little heavier. So I took to a piece of aluminum and cut 4 pieces out of it, and I worked the corners and then painted them up, drilled the holes. Again, little CAD drawings I put together. And then started piecing, so here's the block that would fall on the underside. It's kind of like watching paint dry sometimes. All right, so here we are. Here's the rough ring is done. I've got the holes drilled in the drill press. I've got all the hardware, the moonlight pieces, so it's time to start doing test fits for all the parts. This was interesting because this was, the first part, you'd get to this point and go, all right, well, it's real. It's going to work now. These pieces are going together the way I hoped they would. And then we get to the fun part of starting to play around with, how everything's going to line up, where things are going to fall. And that is a piece of electrical tape on the ruler. Just in case. So this is where I'm setting up to figure out, where in the block, how these are going to set, whether or not they're going to be the right height, if I have to make any adjustments to the focuser board, where the hole's going to be drilled. And now that I determined that everything is pretty much where I want it, I adjusted this drawing to lay back over the focuser board so that I can then punch a hole and figure out where the drill press is going to go. There it goes. So, so I took the bottom piece of the jig and just laid the board on it since it has the same curve. So when I push on the hole saw to make a nice clean hole and won't splinter on the back. And clamps don't like being used that way. It works, but for a quick thing. So here we go. I haven't put a round over on this yet. This is all a rough assembly. Make sure everything lines up the way I need it to. And that was pretty cool. I kind of rough-sided everything, then I went down the end of the table and got right down level with it, and I saw a circle inside a circle, so I knew I was close. And anything else could be done with adjustments to the components of the scope. So yeah, just checking sizes, making sure the circle's the same size. Check, and double check. You know, it's all I gotta say is Hubble Space Telescope. We'll leave it at that. So yeah, it's laying the stuff down, checking to make sure. Yep, that's the same size. Okay, we're good to go. And then there it is. Hole saw down through that. Then I notched out a little piece by hand that takes the drive block of the focuser, and then of course the mounting holes. There's the rough assembly. Well done and happy. You know, people ask me, they say, well, your focuser board doesn't have any support on the bottom. It's curved, and it's very difficult, and there is some movement, but it's very difficult to take something and move it, bend it in two directions. So once you've got the curve on the board, unless you really wail on this thing, there's very little movement to it. And it doesn't jiggle.
Attach the board to the ring?
So there's a hole in the ring. You know, I took a router and made a slot in the ring. And it's just as wide as the focuser board. So I wet the end of the focuser board, threw some glue in the hole, and stuffed it in. And then there's actually 2 screws here on the inside that I then drove through with a pilot just to make sure. But probably didn't need them. And then it's time to do the part I really don't like. I like it because it comes out pretty, and I have this little OCD thing about it, but there's 5 coats of poly on this. So for every piece, it's a light sand, it's sanding sealer, wait for that to dry, coat of poly, let it dry, hit it with steel wool, tack cloth it, 5 coats worth. But they hold up pretty well out in the frost. So long process. All right, then take the other parts out in the backyard, spray paint them. All the hardware also gets painted. Oh, that's the middle of the ring. That's what came out of this.
What did you use to paint it?
Just for the metal parts, just a flat black Rust-Oleum type stuff, and
How did
then
you prep the metal? What did you use?
just a light sand with a steel wool, and then clean it with spirits, and off it goes. And they're all the parts ready to go. I don't know why I did the inside of the ring black. It's just the inside of the telescope. You know, you don't have to do that, but it's the inside of the scope, so it's black. Now, so I went from that to that. And I like that one better. I sent that picture to my brother. Now, my brother and father and I had done the 13-inch scope, which was a great project, and then we built the 20-inch, which I'm glad we did. I mean, it was awesome. We 3 of us had gone our own ways after we got off to college, and my brother doing his business and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden we came back together and worked on those 2 projects. Ben, if you have the opportunity to do that in your life, do it. I highly recommend it. Poor kids getting singled out. So I sent this picture to my brother because he didn't work with this telescope at all with me. And I sent this picture to my brother, and he just replied and said, I feel so unwanted. But it was good because it means the 3 years worth of work we had done on the scope and a couple other things. I learned and listened, so which was a great thing for him. So once that cage is built, now you can start playing around with the numbers. I'm not even going to go through the detail of this thing. But this is where we start putting in all the data. How much does the cage weigh? Teflon sizes. How many of you guys realize that when you're building a telescope with ebony star and Teflon, that the Teflon pads have to be a specific size for weight? Big thing. You go to these places, you buy, like, who does it? Scope Stuff does it. You used to buy ebony star from him, and he'd send you this strip of ebony star that you ordered. And with it would be these pads, cut to some arbitrary size and countersunk. Ebony Star and virgin Teflon only work at 15 psi. That's what gives you the no stick and the buttery smooth movement. And so weight of the telescope, you have to calculate that. Everybody knows ebony star is gone, right? Unless you have some pieces. There's another material out there, glass board. You go into a restroom somewhere, like a restaurant or something, and there's that nice textured white stuff on the walls. That's glass board. At 12 pounds per square inch, it does the same thing. The altitude azimuth bearing my 20 inches glass board works perfect. For those of you that might want to build a scope. So so we start throwing all weights in, and this one's a little less complicated than I normally use, but I have to weigh the wood by square foot, because that plays when you build the mirror box. That's going to play into all your numbers, how deep it needs to be, where you need to cut it, things you're going to do with it. And eventually you come out with numbers. And actually, I don't even know if this one has a lot of the weights in it. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, you can see calculations for the width of the pads based on the weight and the PSI, the 15, stuff like that. So this is how I do it. A lot of people just put pencil to paper and use a calculator, and it works that way too. Oh, there's the balance sheet. So, total weight of the truss assembly, mirror box corner bracings, and gussets. You cut those out, you weigh them. All of that stuff needs to be weighed. And then when you run it, you want to, at the bottom, you come out with a number that tells you where the thing is going to balance. And ideally, I was playing with a number, so it's a negative number, but you want a positive one. You always want the telescope to be, if anything, a bottom heavy. Because if you're doing a telescope that's an F5, and you're a pound heavy down here, you'll need 1/5 of a pound to balance it up here. So you can see if it's the other way. You're going to be putting on big counterweights, which is not a good thing because you got to lug them around. So, but both the 13-inch first version of this, the 20-inch, and this version, I was able to balance right on the money. My 20-inch scope is great. If it's sitting at about 35, 40 degrees, you take an eyepiece out, it does this, all nice and slow, all by itself. Anyway, we'll just run through these pretty quick. Just a CAD drawing. CAD drawings are neat because before you actually get the size of the box, you can actually build a CAD drawing, and you can lock some of the layers and grab onto the ones that are the bearings and the lines up the truss tube, and you can start swinging the thing back and forth, which means if the mirror box goes with it, you can see if this will clear the bottom of your rocker. So before you even build it, you can get that absolute minimum depth. And so here we are building the mirror box itself. Very important part of the telescope. You know, the mirror boxes, these types of telescopes, is the keel of the telescope. It's got the mirror in it, it's got the truss for the upper end, and it's got the altitude bearings. Everything happens off that box. So it has to be really rigid. So corner gussets and braces for the deeper ones, thicker plywood than you would think. And these are just regular butt joints, didn't have to do anything special with those. It's a beautiful 9-ply Baltic birch plywood. Makes a nice end grain, if you're into that kind of thing. So here we are. I used the tailgate and cell out of the original 13-inch design. So there's the 18-point flotation cell. Those are geometrically set up when they're properly aligned so that each piece supports the same weight in glass.
Is that a purchase cell?
Nope. No, that was one my dad built. Yeah. Back to the circles. There's the lid. So then, now you've got your mirror box put together and your mirror cell. Now you got to test the focal length on the thing to see what your distance is going to be between your secondary mirror and your primary. So, more poly. Lots of poly. Black paint. I take too many pictures. Almost as well, actually it's prettier than that coffee table. All right, so there's the test fit from the back side. I don't know what I'm doing there. Oh, getting ready to put the holes in to mount the actual cell. So here we are. These just putting in the holes down here that hold the actual cell into the box.
How did you decide where to put the focal plane and which eyepieces, would fit and that kind of thing?
We're almost there. Yep. Probably could have left a few of these out. And it's really, the further you go and finish parts, the more you're like, please don't screw up, please don't screw up. Make sure that clamp's tight. So there's the mirror in there for the first time. So this is a cell, from the design of the Dobsonian telescope book. The neat thing about these cells is they're open air, they have great adjustment to them, and they're designed for the mirrors to never come out. My 20-inch mirror gets cleaned in the telescope, never comes out. The thing weighs 50 pounds anyway, so I don't want to try and pull it out. So then what you do is you go freak out all the public, right? So you go off to a place, this is at the Quabbin Reservoir, out in central Mass, and you can see in the background, yeah, you see this little knob right here? The background, way off in the distance, there is Mount Monadnock, and that's what I was looking at. And this is what we use to, this is how we figure out what the distances are going to be for all of the components. Now normally, building the bigger telescopes, like the ones with the deeper mirror boxes or the 20-inch, normally we'd go out and get this measurement, and then based upon where we think the weight is, we would then build that mirror box too big, 2 inches too deep. And then when you get more parts built, you go home, you run the torque worksheets, and then you determine how much of the blocks you're going to cut off that you put 30 hours of work into. In this scope, I didn't have to do that because I knew I was going to have counterweights. So as long as I got close, then I would know, I'd have room to play with the weights in the back and do what I need. So we're just out there, and this is like curiosity kills the cat. You're trying to do this and balance things, and somebody else is holding this, and people are coming by and talking to you, and drop the tape measure. So, and then what I'm doing with this is I'm also using the eyepiece that I'll use most. 14 millimeter for this scope's the sweet spot. So, so I rack into about mid-focus, throw the eyepiece in it, and that's the thing I use to check the focal length and get that measurement and go from there. So this here is just getting ready to drill the holes, the mounting holes in the sides of these cast aluminum bearings. If I can have the company that does the bearings for Krieg at Obsession, I'm having him check to see if I can have 20-inch ones made like that and test the strength on them, because I'd like to do this with the big scope. Nothing like drilling holes where you hope they belong in $200 worth of stuff. And then, the sides of these things got pretty complex now, because now that I'm in such a compact space, I need to make sure that all the hardware was going to fit, nothing was going to touch the mirror and so forth. Those blocks I did just the frames of, you can see the tailgate is here, and then the mirror is that rectangle in the middle. Just making sure everything has clearance inside the box, because it's a pretty tight space now. And there I am, drilling more holes into the wood that's already finished. So, kind of going to roll through these a little quick. Just testing angles on things and seeing how stuff is going to fall, making sure I can get this thing to rotate enough without taking out the bearing. So now a friend of mine is helping me get the rocker box built. And this is where I said this is what's fun with CAD, is I pretty much locked the green layer and joined the yellow and the blue layer together, and then put a rotation point right in the center of the bearing, and then I can grab the top of this in the program and just start swinging it back and forth and see if this end of the mirror box clears the rocker inside. Great use of that, because then I can just change the dimensions right on here. I actually had a piece where the counterweights were in place to see if those would hit through the swing. Just really cool. It's easy to do. You can do this stuff in free CAD programs with about an hour's worth of learning. you learn them.
Counterweights go?
What's that?
Where do the counterweights go?
Counterweights are actually in the back of the mirror box, back here. So they're on the other side of the scope. They balance out this end.
And what does it pivot on?
Pivots on bearings. They'll come up in another picture in a second. So these guys here, when you can see the scope after, and everybody come up take a look at it, are the aluminum side bearings. So this is cutting out more jigs. So here's the side of, you build jigs for jigs to cut out jigs and other circles and things. But here's the side of the rocker box. I got a piece of blank wood sitting in here I can run off of. And then I determine where in that section, based on the radius that I want to cut out for the altitude bearings on the side, where I need to mount the circle jig on the router to cut out the arc properly. And you have to do all sorts of things. You know, so, oh, the bearing's 18 inches or 12 and a half inches in diameter, but you're going to put a 1/8 inch thick piece of Ebony Star virgin Teflon in there. And you have to account for that, or else the radius is wrong, it won't work. So there I am, swinging back and forth, lowering the router each time. And of course, these pieces in here are designed so that the router can come through and off the piece of wood without fraying the ends off, because it's running into another piece of wood. So, and there it is. So that's one side done. And I reset the jig and do the next one. You got two pieces, and then there's some rough work you have to do. They don't quite match up on the top, but as long as that arc is the same, that's all that matters. The arc and its relation to the bottom of this bottom piece here. So, as long as those things are true on both sides, you're good to go. And one of the things that they do when they cast these bearings is these bearings are not, and you can see this when you come up and look at it later. These bearings here, the riding surface is not exactly a 90-degree angle to the side of the bearing. It's actually tapered. Works like a train wheel, just a railroad car wheel, so that as you run the telescope up and down, it centers itself automatically because they're tapered out. And actually, on each side of this thing, there's also one little felt pad on each side of the mirror box, just in case it wanders too much, it'll just rub on that. But it doesn't really affect how it works. So those are mounted. Here we go to the rocker box. Now I'm just checking the sides with the corner braces before I screw and glue everything together, making sure it's all square. Put the side on, getting the glue ready. Something to think about as I go through these. We talk about this. You look at this monster mount over here, all the work that's gone into this one, all of the mounts that we see out there on various types of telescopes. The funny thing to think about is the only purpose of this mount, this entire mount, the only thing it's designed to do is hold that layer of aluminum and that layer of aluminum in the proper configuration and throw an eyepiece in front of them. That's it. It's a pretty neat thing to think about. All of that is just to do that, just hold those two layers of aluminum in the right configuration and allow you to move them around. So again, just some more finish work, getting ready to put the azimuth plate on the bottom. So this is the underside of the ground board with a all-metal lock nut welded to the bottom of that plate. And then I set the router up once again on a jig, so I can then just eat out a little depth of wood there so the plate fits in flush. That way I don't have to have feet that are too big. There's another thing about the ground board not a lot of people realize. Oftentimes you look at a ground board on a telescope and it's got 3 feet underneath and the pads aren't above the feet. So that now the telescope is supported on unsupported ground board and it makes a telescope springy. So big rule of thumb, building a telescope like this, it's got a board it spins on, or any type of telescope, the Teflon pads have to go right over the feet. Then you're transferring all of the weight of the telescope directly into the ground. If you don't, you're riding on a springy board. Speaking of feet. And again, because I recessed that plate underneath, these feet are small, which again makes the thing more stable. So a bunch of glue and 3 screws and on the feet go. There's only one thing that holds countertop Formica onto aluminum, Gorilla Glue. But if anybody's used Gorilla Glue, it expands. So yeah, we had to get the Gorilla Glue in the bearing, around the bearing real quick, and put on the Ebony Star Formica, and then you clamp the snot out of it really fast. And then when you think you have enough clamps, you squeeze in some more. And you borrow them from the guy upstairs and from your neighbor who has the awesome cats, so I don't mind going a little bit. I don't know what I don't know what to do here. This is setting up the poles. This was a jig to drill all the holes to put the ends into the poles. The little ball for the ball and socket joints. And again, it's just a way to hold it steady and make sure they all go in the same place. And then of course the screws I got, you couldn't get the right length, so I had to get a Dremel out and cut the screws down to the length I needed. And there they are. Saw that one, all painted. So there's what it looks like after you've run the trim router around the, taken off the excess Ebony Star and your Gorilla Glue's all dry. There is the treated bearing, ready to roll. Mirror box is done, pulling the masking tape off of the rocker box. So what I also done with this project is the tailgate itself had a lot of use at that point, so I took that whole thing apart. I replaced these with PVC, I think. I have to look. Maybe I put them back. I don't know. They're the bumpers for the mirror, so they don't fall out. New Kydex ring, painted the tailgate again. Getting ready to put all that back together. To tell you a story, real quick story, these tailgates are great. There was a gentleman who had a 20-inch obsession. He was out in New Mexico and they ran into a windstorm. He woke up the next morning because he had his telescope, shut down for the night. He woke up the next morning and found the OTA 3 feet on the ground flat away from the rocker. The thing had actually been blown out of its rocker onto the ground, mirror inside it and all. He figured when he opened that up there was going to be no mirror left in it. All he had to do was fix a vane on the secondary cage and put it back together. He used it that night. These cells are incredible. I've actually heard the 20-inch in the back of my truck driving up to Aruna Hill going as easy as I can. I've heard the mirror jump in the cell and slam back down on the flotation pads, and no troubles. So there's all the parts. She's ready to go together, finally. So this is me just putting the, so the wood ones to go back in. Just putting the sling in. And then this is doing final thing is I'm using Formica glue to put the Ebony Star ring on the bottom of the mirror, bottom of the rocker box. Anybody's ever done anything like this? These are from Venetian blinds. So you just buy a stack of those things at Walmart for 99 cents, and you just lay all your glue, let it get dry out so it's not tacky, and then you just pull a strip and roll it, pull the next strip and roll it, keep going all the way around. Works wicked good. Thing doesn't move once you do it. Learned that from my brother. Learned a lot from my brother. Oh yeah, gloves when you cut these things. Very important. So, final pictures here of getting everything right. This is it's a where do we put the pads? How do we make sure the bearings are all right? How do we make sure it's level? And mainly get the truss so that it's actually vertical. What I'm doing now is adjusting the lower pole seats at the right angle so the thing is actually straight when it's done. And shims behind these because the truss actually tilts in just a little bit on its way from the box up to the cage. And there I am, I've got the mirror box set at a certain angle, 90 degrees set here with the way the bearing's been put on, and then it just allows me to start adjusting these angles to get them right. And determine where I'm going to mount the pads. So, that's the other thing in order to get the buttery smooth motion. The pads have to be about 60 degrees apart on the arc, down along for these bearings. So all of these things, the PSI on the pads, the size of the pads, where the arc goes, where the pads go on the arc, they all contribute to the motion of the scope. And I encourage anybody to come up here before you leave and move the scope around. it's cool. Pads on the bottom, that's just showing where they're going to sit, but they're actually going to go on the ground board. There we go. Mounted the pads on the ground board, ready to put this together. See the pad sitting right over the foot? So here's the foot, ground board, and pad. You don't want the pad out here. And shims. Oh, last couple of things here. Adding the counterweights. Counterweights are important for this scope because of its tiny design. And there are the lead blocks. I've covered them up so I can at least not eat the lead. I think they're 5 pounds a piece. Clean the mirror up. And then we went out to first light, which was great. Minus the fact that I had no light shroud that night, so. But it is what it is. Mirror hasn't been cleaned since. I don't believe in cleaning mirrors unless you absolutely have to. The 20-inch will have to be done this year. It's 10 years old this year, and I have a whole 4-page thing from Buena Vista, Colorado, from Galaxy Optics on how to clean it. So, which is frightening, but we'll get there. So, that's it from me. Questions are good.
Bruce Tinkler's taking care of refreshments and everything.
Got a quick question.
And what I'm going to do is handle 3 questions. I know some people have to leave a little early, but we need time anyway to set up. So we'll take 3 questions. Then what I'm going to do is people who have questions, Kevin can come up. The other groups that were here as well, you can talk. We'll get kind of a roundabout. We'll get all those questions answered. So I'm going to take 3 questions. Then I'll formally close the meeting, and we'll go from there. Okay, go ahead. Your call.
How did you, would you say again what the bearings are made of? Are those aluminum?
Yeah, they're cast aluminum. Yep. And then
who did them? How did you?
Obsession Telescopes builds the big truss tubes for commercial stuff. He makes them for his scopes and sells them on his website. Has a small company that does them for him that he's talking to for what they want.
The moonlight ball and socket
Yep.
truss, did you measure them, or is it standard size?
They're standard size. They'll make them for a 1.25 inch and 1 inch, 1.25 inch, and 2-inch tubes. Those 3 sizes are generally the ones that folks will use for telescopes like this.
And the length?
Length is mine. That's pretty much the tubes I bought and determined, as building the scope. Yep.
Did you actually ray trace this?
No. Well, I ran it through Newt and determined that I can actually, and it's one of the improvements I'm going to make is I'm going to take out the 2.75 inch minor axis secondary and put a 2.6 in. Just get a little,
Actually, the original came at 3.1.
yeah, big. And I don't know if that one's a 3.1. We should look at it.
That's the original, it's a 3.1.
Yeah.
I got that exact monster.
Oh yeah, so it's 3. Yeah.
It's down to the rings. I get the same rings. I don't know.
It just goes to show you the 20 inch. My 20 inch is an F5, and that's a 3.1.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so I'm going to actually take it down a little more. Play around with it. So that's 3.
Okay. First of all, I want you all, thank you for coming tonight. Have a safe trip back. Also, happy Easter, happy Passover, and we'll meet again in a month. Thank you very much. Meeting is closed.